As some of you may know, the Primal list is the most versatile spell list in the entire Pathfinder 2e system. It's got buffs, it's got debuffs, it's got elemental damage, it's even got healing. But that can make it difficult to decide which spells to pick when you're building a Primal caster. Of course, it does depend on what you're wanting to do with your Primal caster, but today I'm going to go over some of my basic recommendations for Primal spells in Pathfinder 2e. Let's dive in. So I'm going to start with the cantrip known as Healing Plaster. Healing Plaster creates magical mud that you can use as healer's tools, but only to treat wounds and administer first aid. And since treat wounds is about 90% of what healer's tools are used for, Primal casters with this spell don't even need healer's tools. So that 5 gold you normally spend on healer's tools at character creation, Primal casters with this spell can spend that gold on something else. And now we come to my favorite first level spell, Protector Tree. This spell creates a tree that has 10 AC and 10 hit points. Whenever an ally that is adjacent to the tree would take damage, the tree interposes its branches and takes the damage first. Any damage that is beyond that of the tree's hit points is dealt to the original target. This spell is fantastic if you've got a good champion in the party. The good champion's reaction will reduce damage, and so will the tree. As such, allies take even less damage than they would with just this spell. This combination is a perfect example of why teamwork is so important in this system. For level 2, I've gone with Fungal Infestation. This spell has a 15-foot cone area, and all creatures in that area must make a Fortitude saving throw. Those that don't critically succeed take at least half of 2d6 persistent poison damage. In addition, those who at least fail their saving throw gain weakness to fire and slashing damage as long as they're taking that persistent damage. You may not have someone in your party that specializes in fire damage, but you wouldn't believe how many marshals want to use a weapon that at least can do slashing damage. So if you cast this spell on a bunch of enemies, you're going to be helping out a marshal in about 80 to 90% of parties. Plus, if they're still taking the persistent poison damage, when your next turn comes around, you can hit them with a fire spell to gain that weakness. Like a fireball, for instance. At level 3, I've gone with one that a lot of people talk about as being very good, and I don't blame them. We are, of course, talking about the Slow spell. You target one creature within 30 feet, and they must make a Fortitude saving throw. If they don't crit succeed, then they are anywhere from slowed 1 for a round to slowed 2 for 1 minute. So the target loses anywhere from 1 action for a round to 2 actions per round for the next minute. Yeah, the slowed condition is extremely powerful and can swing the fight completely in your favor. And the best part about this spell is that you can use it even on bosses very effectively because it doesn't have the incapacitation trait. Alright, next up we have Tortoise and the Hare. This spell is essentially the combination of the Slow spell and the Haste spell in one spell. You target one foe within 30 feet, and you're either yourself or an ally within that area. The foe must make a Fortitude saving throw against this spell. The foe can be slowed 1 for anywhere from 1 round to 3 minutes. The other target, which can either be yourself or an ally, is quickened for 1/3 that time. And that target can use the extra action to step, stride, or strike. Come on, a spell that can do something similar to slow and quicken an ally? Of course the spell is good. Next up is Chameleon Coats. You can target up to 8 creatures within 15 feet with this spell, and it lasts for 10 minutes. All creatures affected by this spell gain a +3 status bonus on stealth checks to hide. If any piece of gear or clothing that is affected by this spell is removed from the creature, the spell ends for that creature. This one is especially powerful if the party needs to sneak around, especially for that champion that's in heavy plate mail that isn't exactly good at stealth. Next, we've got a spell that can be extremely powerful if used in the right area. Nature's Reprisal has a 120-foot range and affects all squares on the ground that contain plants. For the next minute, those squares become difficult terrain for your enemies. Just your enemies. And if a square was already difficult terrain due to plants, it becomes greater difficult terrain and hazardous terrain. Any hazardous terrain deals 6 poison damage to any enemies that enter an affected square. This spell isn't really going to work in like a cave or in the middle of the city. But if you're in an area like plains or forests, this spell can be extremely powerful. Definitely pick this one up. For level 7, I've gone with Mask of Terror. You can target one creature within 30 feet with this spell. For the next minute, anyone that uses a hostile action against that creature must make a will saving throw. It is then temporarily immune until the end of its next turn. If the target at least fails its saving throw, then it is frightened 2 before it uses the hostile action. But if the target critically fails their saving throw, then they become frightened 2 and lose the action. I've talked before about how good the frightened condition is in this system. And keep in mind, they're only immune to the frightened condition for 1 round because of this spell, making this spell extremely powerful for very long encounters. Next, we've got one that inflicts a condition that is extremely rare and extremely powerful. Polar Ray requires a spell attack roll and targets one creature within 120 feet. The ray deals 10d8 cold damage, and if you hit, the target is drained 2. Yes, all you have to do is hit and they're drained. No saving throw. Not only does drained lower their hit points even more, but it also reduces their fortitude saving throws, which a ton of creatures have high fortitude saving throws. And a lot of really good effects require fortitude saving throws. So this spell can make it easier for allies to get some good effects on enemies, or your own effects that require fortitude saving throws. At level 9, I've gone with Nature's Enmity. This spell targets up to 5 creatures in a 500-foot burst within 120 feet. As long as the targets are in that area, they suffer one of the following effects. First, you can give it a minus 10-foot status penalty to speed anytime it's near plants or fungi. Secondly, you can force them to make a DC 8 flat check at the start of each of their turns, or take 2d10 slashing damage. The target must also make a basic reflex saving throw, and on any outcome other than a critical success, they are flat-footed for 1 round. And finally, you can make them roll a DC 5 flat check to cast any primal spells, and if they fail, they lose the spell. Also, animal and plant creatures in the area become hostile to it, even those with a strong bond to the target, such as an animal companion. This spell lasts for 10 minutes. And finally, for level 10, I've gone with Primal Herd. With this spell, you can transform yourself and up to 5 willing allies within 30 feet into mammoths. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this spell because that would make the video too long. But they are all huge creatures, and when attacking with the unarmed attacks that the mammoth form gives them, they use their most favorable attack bonus. But they use the damage listed in the spell. The best part about this spell is that it's completely voluntary. They have to be willing in order to transform. And they can end the form on themselves at any time. This makes this spell great for allies that have great attack bonuses, but not great damage. And that's going to do it for this video. If you want me to cover other spells on other lists, then let me know by leaving a like on this video and a comment. Of course, I already did arcane spells on this channel, so if you want to see that, the video is right here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.